Welcome to another edition of the Kitchen Podcast. It's been a while, so let's get to it. Today I want to talk about three topics, big topics. The first one is the Epstein files, giving you an update. What do we know now? What's next? And then the second topic is going to be the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. What happened so far? What are the cases that are supporting Donald Trump, the ones against Donald Trump, what happens next, what's still left to come. And then finally, we're going to talk about Project 2025, which is Donald Trump's radical ethno-state Christian fascist agenda that he has been implemented with rapid fire this past year and into the first 2 months of the year. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. And for those of you who are members of my private community on Substack, on YouTube, and on Patreon, you can look forward to a Next Steps where beyond these topics here, I'll tell you what I think happened after Jeffrey Epstein died. I'm going to tell you what I think is going on since then. I'm going to tell you my predictions for the Supreme Court for the remaining cases that left to be decided. And also, what do I think, how do we need to seal up things and close out loops and make it so that any future Project 2025 or 2026 agenda can never happen again. So my predictions and my suggestions, recommendations. For those of you in my private community, if you're not a member, you can join over at Substack, you can join on YouTube, or you can join on Patreon. All right, so let's get started. Okay, first on Epstein, if you don't know, Jeffrey Epstein, the famous child trafficker who was convicted in 2008, he pled guilty to soliciting a minor. The man who prosecuted his case, Alex Acosta, went on to be Donald Trump's labor secretary in Palm Beach County, but he gave him a sweetheart deal, so much so that Jeffrey Epstein was able to leave the campus of his prison and just continue his activities. Between 2008 and 2018, for the next 10 years, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of settlements with his victims, of folks who become aware of what he did and what he was going on, distance themselves from him. Others continue to interact with him, and that's the problem. We do know that in 2019, he was arrested in July. By the next month, he was found hanged in his cell, according to officials. And since then, we've just been trying to get access to the files, but they were held up. We switched administration in 2020 to 2021. One of his co-conspirators, his main one, Ghislaine Maxwell, was found guilty of assisting recruit minors for Jeffrey Epstein's child trafficking ring. She remains in prison today. There'll be updates on her later on. We know that Jeffrey Epstein was finally actually charged and imprisoned during the Trump administration. And it was during the Trump administration that he was found hanging in his cell. So that's the update. Since then, we've realized that Donald Trump campaigned on the release of the Epstein files. In fact, his FBI director, Kash Patel, at the time was saying that blaming Christopher Wray, who was the FBI director across 2 terms. Actually, Donald Trump appointed Christopher Wray the FBI director. He stayed on that role during the Biden administration. And Kash Patel was found on a podcast, because he's a podcast bro, criticizing it.
And let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black book?
black book?
FBI.
A biographer, Michael Wolff, had said that Jeffrey Epstein kept tapes and videos of the men that he honeypot, got to do these acts with these children, and he was using them as blackmail. We also know from an interview with Virginia Giuffre that she said that Jeffrey Epstein did clear the tapes, and she did see videotapes of her rooms and the massage rooms and all the rooms.
I was trafficked to a lot of types of different men. I was trafficked to other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. He used me as a form of blackmail. In New York, in his New York mansion, I don't even think he meant to bring me into this room, but we were going out of his house. We were walking out, and right before you walk out to the front door, there's this door that I never even really noticed was there. And it led to this room where he brought in, and he was talking to some of the security guards. I didn't know there's security guards in there. And there's like so many little TV monitors everywhere. I mean, just stacks and stacks and stacks of them. And I saw my room, and I saw my toilet, and where my shower was, and I saw the massage room, and I was so utterly mortified. I was like, this guy's watching me go to the toilet. He's watching everything that happens in the massage room. He's watching in me in my bedroom. He's, like everything's being recorded. And that's when I realized that's how he's getting away with blackmailing everybody. Biggest reason in my mind was because he wanted to always have something on someone just in case he needed it.
So there is evidence that he was keeping blackmail materials. So I think based on all that information I just told you, it's fair to say that there were videos and images. Now to get access to them. In August 2025, Kash Patel, who had previously said, release the Epstein files, Christopher Wray released the names, all of a sudden said he was not aware of Jeffrey Epstein trafficking anyone else to other people.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Other than himself. Like, quick aside, we all know from us looking at the files, me included, that is absolutely not true. He also said he thought that Donald Trump was in the files less than 100 times. We now know from Jamie Raskin, who was able recently to go look at the unredacted files and do a search, that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files over 1 million times. And before, we were aware through the redacted files that his name was there about 36,000 times. Donald Trump, for some reason, think he's been exonerated. Absolutely not, because some of the first files we saw was allegations of a 13-year-old, allegations, again, unsubstantiated, saying that she was assaulted, essayed by Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump and threatened. And there is also evidence or allegations of a interview with a limo driver who said that he overheard Donald Trump talking about essaying a child and threatening that child's life. And he says that child actually had her, was murdered, and in really excruciating fashion. It could not have been a suicide, according to that person, the limo driver who left that allegation. So no way is he considered to be, not exonerated, whatever. So anyway, so that's what we have. But however, in August, we see that there is a problem. A couple of months later, you see some Republicans deciding to side with the Democrats to do what's called a discharge petition to force the DOJ to release the files. Included in the Republicans that switched over side is Tom Massey, who became a leader in this movement, and he's out and spoken along with Ro Khanna. So they have a bipartisan leaders in this effort. Nancy Mace, who's a Republican, and Marjorie Taylor Greene at the time, she's since resigned, signed on to the discharge petition. And Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Donald Trump said a lot of his friends were going to be hurt.
Look, I got yelled at by the president over this. This is why he called me a traitor. He called me a traitor because I would not take my name off the discharge petition, because I stood firmly and said, no, we're going to release the Epstein files. I'm standing with women who were as teenagers. I'm not standing with the government. I don't support the cover up of all of this stuff, whatever it may be. And the president got mad at me, and he's told me, and I've said this multiple times, he told me his friends would get hurt. And that's what he told me. And then we're seeing a continued slow walk and cover up of a lot of this information. And I know that is why. I firmly believe that that's why it is being covered up. So when everyone's getting mad at Pam Bondi, or you can name anybody you want. The man at the top is Donald Trump. He's the president. And he's the one that was completely against releasing the files. When we started fighting to get them released, he's the one that called it a Democrat hoax.
If those files get released. But she was like, I'm all about the victims. Nancy Mace herself is a former child SA victim, and so she also signed on. So the first dump happened in December. It was heavily redacted. There was a lot of criticism of it, but we got the chance to realize that no, Kash Patel, Epstein indeed trafficked to other people. I saw some files myself. The Donald Trump and the DOJ dumped all the files, and it was supposed to be in a readable format, but they did not. Thank God there's more of us than them. Thank God they're not smart people. Someone created a Epstein mail, looks like a Gmail, made it easy to search files, and it was Chronicle. There's other people out there that create all sorts of searchable connections and files, and it's just been easier for us to look through the files that they've been dumping. Sometime in December, it was little reported until recently, Ghislaine Maxwell actually did a request to her pro se filing, asking for what's called habeas corpus, saying that she wants a relooking her file. She says that there are 4 unindicted co-conspirators who are unnamed, and she said there are a lot of men who got sweetheart deals, who were pled out. And we do know from then that at least one of them, Leon Black, did indeed get a plea deal. We know from the Epstein files that were dumped last in January 2026 that there are some other men, Lex Wexner, for example, who were actually co-conspirators at the time. So then there's just like lots of questions. At that time in December, Donald Trump was saying it's a Democratic hoax. It's a Democratic hoax, something that he campaigned on, something that his his Attorney General had a whole presser saying that she's releasing the files, that they repeatedly said they're releasing files. All of a sudden, that's now a hoax, which is a slap in the face to the actual victims.
These files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden. It's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
Then we see that at some point in January, Todd Blanche goes before the press and says that if he knew of anyone to Epstein, any men who did anything that...
Just to clarify, is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
I mean, you just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? I mean, I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, they're the men who abused the young women through Epstein's
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women. If we learn about information and evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But I don't.
He would prosecute them. We know that's a lie because there are lots and lots of evidence now that we're seeing, and there's lots of folks, and they're saying the case is closed or done. Donald Trump went on TV and said, move on. Let's move on from Epstein. Then the following month, we have Pam Bondi saying the Dow is 50,000. Focus on that. Focus on the narco boats we're shooting down. Don't focus on this. She infamously refused to face the victims and refused Representative Jay Paul's request that she turn around and apologize for the way that they've been treated. They've met with none of the victims. The Democrats say on the Hill say they met with the victims. The Republicans, it's in a massive cover-up, and no doubt that's what this is. It would take, a blind man could see through this. And as we see more and more elements of the files, it just gets more and more disturbing. So that's the update on Jeffrey. Now let's talk about the Supreme Court and give you an update. You probably are familiar with the term called shadow dockets, where normally the Supreme Court sessions start sometime in August or September when they start deciding which cases they're going to hear, which ones they won't hear. October is official start. They start having oral arguments between October, November, December, January, February. Around March to, I guess, May or so, they start releasing orders and you start seeing the decisions being made. And the summertime is they go on break. But during the summer, as you can imagine, emergencies crop up. People have plea for, stay of executions, things like that. And emergencies, normally that's really rare, but Donald Trump abused the emergency, and the Supreme Court granted him several. They allowed him to do the reduction in force, fire a bunch of probation employees, essentially by staying. So let's say Donald Trump does something that's considered unlawful. The folks who are impacted by it would run the courts. The courts will grant a brief reprieve. So they say, well, we're going to pause this because it looks like you're going to win. We've balanced the interests. It looks like your interests win in this. And so So because the court cases take a long time to, I guess, dispose of, you have these depositions, you have document exchanges, you have then the trials and the hearings, and all that stuff can take a long time. In the meantime, we don't want you to be harmed, so we'll stay. So the Supreme Court has been granted lifting those stays, because the Trump administration would run to Supreme Court and say, hey, could you lift that stay so we can continue to do that actions? And they've been doing it. They lifted the stay regarding to third-party deportations, which allowed Donald Trump to continue to deport folks. They lifted the stay as to Doge access to our Social Security information, lifted the stay as to Doge attempts to dodge being required to abide by the Freedom of Information Act request. They lifted the stay as regard to stopping the firing of the Federal Trade Commission commissioner. They lifted a stay as to the firing of Glenn Wincox, was the first Black woman to head the National Labor Relations Board, and Kathy Harris, who was the head of the Merit System Protection Board, which is an interim sort of like place where you go if you have a problem with the government and you work for the government. They also granted the probation interns. They lifted the blocking of Department of Education of cuts, and they also lifted the stay as to the probation employees. The temporary protective status for Venezuelans, temporary protective status of other folks, and that's my say. They gave them. They had a couple of losses. Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts joined with the liberal justices to force the Trump administration to pay the outstanding invoices owed to people who had did contracts under the USAID. And also, as to the Alien Enemies Act, they said that Donald Trump must give the due process rights to folks he tried to deport under the Alien Enemies Act. And previously, regarding to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they told him that he has to return him back, and he also owed him a minimum of due process rights under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. So that's where we are. Now, since that's a summer docket, it's been a mess because of they lifted the stays, Donald Trump's been able to deport people to be tortured, deport people to places they'll be persecuted. That's allowed him to, the other one was the LA, Los Angeles, was a big one because that they've allowed Donald Trump to go through, racially profile, and just brutalize and violate the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights of residents in the United States, put them in, remove them from their families, take them down to concentration camps where they tortured them until they forced, kind of get rapid removal, either without or with their permission, get them to self-deport, and just kind of like, undermine all of our immigration nationality laws and protections for folks here, including allowing him to remove the people who are here lawfully, including people who have temporary protective status. So it's been a damaging year, which was greenlit by the Supreme Court lifting these stays. And then subsequently it's also been hamstrung by the Supreme Court because in the birthright citizenship case, in the interim decision, they blocked district courts from doing what's called nationwide injunctions. So as you know, Donald Trump would go from city to city to city just wreaking havoc, from LA to DC to Portland to Chicago to Minneapolis, trying to implement like bad things, like bring in the troops, like militarize the streets. And it would take the folks who are victims to sue and win. When they win in Los Angeles, their win would only apply to Los Angeles. It could not apply nationwide. They win and they do the same thing in Minneapolis. Their win in Minneapolis would only apply in Minneapolis. So for example, in Portland, Donald Trump was forced to give access to the lawyers in the Portland migrant cases, and the people had to file the same lawsuit in Chicago, and he lost in Chicago. Then he did the same thing in Minneapolis. So every single where he goes, he does the same thing, violates laws, abuses the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment rights, he does all sorts of things like that, and also Sixth Amendment rights and Eighth Amendment rights, because he's punishing these people, cruel and unusual punishment in his detention migration centers. And it requires those who are victims to file a lawsuit. And then when they file a lawsuit, they win only as to Minneapolis. So whatever city they go to next, they're going to do the exact same thing. And so that's the dangers of not having a nationwide injunction. Donald Trump repeatedly has asked sued sanctuary states. He sued in New York and he lost. Then he sued in Illinois, he lost, and so on and so forth. So he just does what's called lawfare, knowing very well that he has no chance to win, but he's just doing it to be disruptive. He does it for the headlines and should know that he's going to lose, but that's not why they do it. And meanwhile, they're wasting our tax dollars, because when they lose, the courts usually reward the lawyers' fees for the cities, the states, the unions, the nonprofits, the migrant organizations that have to hire lawyers to defend defend themselves. We end up footing a bill. And then sometimes there are class action lawsuits that we end up fitting. So it's really, really inefficient. So it's been a wasteful year so far. The amount of money that has been cost us from the terrible tariff policies to the grifting, the stealing, the buying off, the pardoning, the ripping off Venezuelan oil and pocketing it for himself, all the things that looks like allegedly he's done has just been expensive. Meanwhile, there's been very little policy to help the American people because there's 22 states in recession. We still have rising unemployment, the inflation, consumer confidence is low, housing and childcare process continue to rise. And yeah, so there's just no government. I won't get into that. So that's it. That says the Supreme Court. Now let's fast forward to the oral arguments. Oral arguments were heard in the Federal Trade Commission case. He fired the Federal Trade Commission. The law says that the Federal Trade Commission must have at least one member from the opposing party. That's the law. That's Congress's law. But Donald Trump got rid of the one Democrat on the Federal Trade Commission. So that's being challenged. Also, the Voting Rights Act, people who watched and listened to the oral arguments said it looked like they're going to soften or eliminate the remaining section of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We'll see. And then a birthright citizenship case, which really was about nationwide injunctions. There was an oral arguments there, and there were oral arguments in Lisa Cook, where Donald Trump tried to fire the only Black woman in the 100 years of the Natural Federal Reserve, based on some bogus allegations that have been debunked about her mortgage fraud, saying that she committed mortgage fraud, though there's evidence that that's not true. And then finally, his tariff policy. There were oral arguments. So those are what we can expect coming down the pike. Yeah, so I'm going to, in the episodes for my communities, I'm going to share with you what my thoughts on to my prediction on how all of these are going to go down. But that's what we're waiting for now. And if you haven't already follow me, I invite you to follow me. I'm JJ Legal. I'm in the dockets. I follow the lawsuits involving the Trump administration. And this is my one of my signature series is a kitchen podcast when I just chop. When I just talk shop with very little receipts. I just talk about the days and give you updates. I also have a series when I do congressional reactions. I bring to you the Democrats in action as we get closer and closer to the midterms. I also have a series where I just do legal updates, let you know the extent to which the Trump administration actually is losing, and we are winning. And a lot of the court cases, he has a losing record. So that's one of the things I do here on my channel. If you are not following along and you'd like to subscribe, I invite you to subscribe. This video is brought to you by my newsletter. So if you'd like to get in on a newsletter, get bi-weekly, I'm still working the kinks out, updates of any cases you might have missed. You can go get it at jjlegal.com. And you can also get a Trump Survivor Kit, which includes know your rights cards, scripts, and where to access the case dockets so you can keep up with the cases like me. So that's it. You can also see where you can get me a cup of coffee, buy my merch, or join my membership community on YouTube, Patreon, and Substack if you're not already a member. It's a great place. I try to do intimate updates, and I owe them. You get a case tracker for free. I still owe people the case tracker, and you get some members-only videos, and you get access to all the archives. And if you're in Substack, you get a chance to make comments in the posts. All right, so that's it. Now, that was the second one. For the last one, we're going to Project 2025 agenda. Let me give you an update on that and see what's going on with that one. The final is the Project 2025 agenda, the very unpopular Christian fascist ethno-state that they're trying to build, which included, and it looks like they've close to 50 to 75% implementation, ending the Department of Education, ending Head Start, limiting or ending Medicare and Medicaid, removing federal civilian workers and replacing them with loyalists to Donald Trump, removing DEI, limiting or eliminating LGBTQ community rights, rolling back reproductive rights for women, ending birthright citizenship, removing and dismantling regulations, including climate change, environmental justice initiatives, rolling and scaling back voting rights. So all of that sounds pretty crazy, right? It sounds very aggressive. It is. And that's why it was unpopular during this is something that was developed in between Donald Trump's first term and second term. They got together. It was really obvious, and there were news articles about it. Like, they didn't hide it. However, at some point, as they created this huge book, it was created by the Heritage Foundation, the book circulated and people were like, oh my God, this is terrible. It polled horribly. It polled horribly amongst Democrats. It appeared horribly amongst Republicans and independents. Majority of the people, no matter what you're polling, did not like it. It also included, I didn't mention, the immigration. So part of it was not just going after criminals. It was going after people here with lawful status. So that means rolling back and eliminating the temporary protective status, which is a way that the Americans invite people here in countries that are experiencing things like famine, political unrest, rampant gun violence, and you allow them to come, they pay a fee, they go through vigorous background checks, and a certain number allotted to come to the United States and live on a temporary basis until whatever it is the problem that they have leaves. So there are a lot of people here in TPS status. There's refugees, there are folks here who are paroling here who are fiancés or married to United States citizens. There are people who came here on U visas because we had a nursing shortage, so we invited them there. There are some trafficking victims, child trafficking victims that we find along the way, and we, set them up here instead of sending them back to wherever they were trafficked. And they have sponsors and they're existing. So their Project 2025 says get rid of all of them: the trafficked kids, get rid of the nurses who came here, nursing shortages, the fiancés and spouses of permanent residents and United States citizens. They want to get rid of everybody out. And so, and they asked, and they have successfully, had Donald Trump administration attempted on executive basis to criminalize or make illegal people who are already here on legal status, and then go from the border and come and implement inside the interior the laws that normally will require you to be in detention if you just came into the country within 14 days. If you have an active removal order or you are on the criminal docket, then you can be held for 14, you can be held indefinitely until they find a way to remove you. Donald Trump and them have been changed the law to make anyone who is here adjusting status, who may enter unlawfully and trying to adjust to asylum or refugee or given temporary protective status or something else, all of those people they categorize as new, even though they're not new and they're not within 14 days of arriving. A lot of people have been in the country 10, 20 years, even longer. So they're not new. They haven't just arrived to the country, and a lot of them don't have removal orders or criminal backgrounds. That's why DHS says 75% of the people in custody have no criminal backgrounds, because they've been going after those people, according to Project 2025. Now, here's the thing. It was unpopular then. So people are realizing what Project 2025 actually is doing is drawing us closer together. People are realizing the fact that their services are going down, like, oh my God, and it's a mess. You saw how Lizzie Halligan butchered Donald Trump's attempt to prosecute his perceived political enemies, including Letitia James Comey, and John Bolton, and that the person he assigned just couldn't do it. There's a lot of bumbling. There's a lot of mistakes. The Department of Justice just is terrible. It has a horrible losing record because the people there just don't know what's going on. They're making terrible arguments, not based on facts and laws. I've seen it. I'm in the dockets. Their arguments actually ridiculous sometimes. So that's what you get when you replace career civilians with sycophants and loyalists that don't know what the hell they're doing. And I think what they've actually done is help people realize the extent to which actually we like the government the way it is, and we change our minds. We're sorry federal workers. So they're realizing the importance of actual career experience in the federal government, and it also drawing us closer together. People who might not have cared about their neighbors realize, oh my God, you mean they took the man who owned the bakery store down the street, my favorite baker, they're gone. So folks like Tom Homan's neighbors in his vacation home community of Sag Harbor, New York, actually took to the streets, protested when he took away a mom and 4 teenagers who were working in the dairy farm that they are familiar with. And he eventually brought them back. But that was the first sign, that was back in April 2025, that the American people really, really don't like you taking folks who are in the country, contributing to the $3.4 billion annually that the migrant and immigrant community contributes to our federal, state, and local income tax, that they bring in about $1.5 billion because a lot of them actually work. Folks like the Haitian migrants in the town of Springfield, Ohio, revitalized the town by working jobs that the Springfield, Ohioans didn't want to take, and then buying out the border homes, fixing them, raising the property value of the community, just making Springfield such a great place. In Ohio, generally, so much that the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, told the Trump administration, please do not come for our Haitian immigrant community because we need them. So that's what they've been doing, making people realize to the extent to which we actually love our neighbors. It's drawing us closer together. If the effect was to make people toss aside wokeness, you're actually making this more woke. And what does woke mean anyway? Does it just mean empathy and caring, making room at the table for other people, realizing that equality doesn't mean less for you? It just means giving everyone a fair chance, a fair shake. So yeah, so they've been scaling back DI. But then here's the thing with Project 2025, because it's so unpopular, because the implementation has been so brutal, including the ending of life of American citizens. And we're seeing on social media the brutality of all. We're seeing here in the cases of them detaining children and nursing mothers and pregnant and separating babies from moms and deporting whole families, supporting U.S. citizen children, going up and picking up children out of their beds, scaring them, having people run to their homes, the sounds of people running and the whistles and saying, go home. The government is terrorizing. And it's gone across the country. It's gone across the world. I just saw a video from Germany, and they were saying this was going on in America. The United States government is terrorizing their own citizens, the residents of the country, and they're frightening children, they're frightening people, and they're brutalizing and ending their own citizens. So it removes all more authority that the United States government had into any developing nation or any second world, quote unquote, second world nation. And the world is like, you claim this moral authority. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of people who are so racist, they refuse to elect the first black female Indian president because you were scared of her. But so instead you took this know-nothing sycophant, xenophobe who stole top secret documents, was found liable for sexual abuse, who the judge said actually raped the woman, and actually has allegations all up and down the Epstein files of defiling children. Really much so, and boys and girls, and it threatens some of their lives. Like, that's what the allegations are. I'm not saying that it's substantiated, but lots of victims, lots of allegations. That's who y'all chose to lead instead of the black Indian woman. So yeah, that's what it looks like for us. And Project 2025, helping people realize, you know what, woke is not that bad. We're okay now. We change our minds. Mea culpa. We can realize the importance of our neighbors. We realize that we miss when you talk about getting rid of Department of Education, and we know our kids get an IEP from the Department of Education, and we know that we're part of the southern states that don't have really great education system, that we're going to struggle without the Department of Education. So we actually want the IEP, and we actually appreciate Head Start, and we actually appreciate Job Corps. You took away Job Corps because Job Corps helps black communities, but then all the rural communities were like, wait a minute, we like Job Corps too. So racism, discrimination, and hate, xenophobia is expensive. So that's a lesson that a lot of Americans are realizing, and that's why there's a blowback. There's going to be a boomerang effect. On my next video, I'm going to share with you my predictions on these outstanding Supreme Court cases. I'm going to share with you what I think happened to Jeffrey Epstein after he passed away. I'm also going to share with you my recommendations of how we close up this loop, how we stop them from being able to do what they did and were able to do this past year and 2 months. So if you're interested in that, I invite you, if you're a member of the YouTube membership, just go onto YouTube, look for the membership option, click and join, and you can watch that video. Or if you're a member of Substack, I'll have it uploaded there. And Patreon, I'll have this video uploaded for my Patreon subscribers as well. And that's where you can support me. I'm a community-generated, community-supported channel. It's an experiment. I'm going to try to see if I can do this as long as I can. And thanks for all those who are generous enough to purchase my merch, to join my communities, to buy me a cup of coffee, or to purchase my case tracker or my templates, because those are the things that I sell to substantiate, because I don't get much. I am going to work on it. I don't get sponsorships, and I do have affiliate links, but I don't get paid by the creator communities on Instagram or Meta because it's a political content that I do on YouTube. So thanks so much.